Welcome, everybody. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territory on which we're gathered today, a welcoming place for peoples from around the world. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as the Cree, the Saulteaux, the Blackfoot, Métis, Nakota Sioux. It's good to be back. It's been a great year away. I won't lie. To have had an administrative year is really a privilege and a pleasure. I don't take that lightly. I was able to retouch my research, do some writing, give a couple of papers at conferences, and I know that several people in this room know that I organized a big conference as well. It's always good to have the dean roll up her sleeves and have to deal with all the different aspects of the university because it makes you realize when things work and when they don't work. So that was very interesting. It was also interesting because the conference took place during Brexit, and a third of the people at the conference were from Britain. So in real time, I watched faces collapse and the Twitter feed go from excitement to despair. That will lead into what I want to say today about our role in the world, because I do think that we are at a moment when more and more the work that we do is important for what's happening out in the world, and that we need to take that seriously. Well, while I've been away, lots of things have changed. We have a new president who isn't quite so new now, but he came in as I left, and so I have yet to work much with him, except for the summer. New provost. Now we have a new vice president of finance and a new vice president of facilities and operations who are either have just started or very quickly will start. And we're looking this year for a new vice president of external relations and a new vice president of research. So within the year, we will have a completely new set of leaders at this university. I think this is an appropriate moment for us as a faculty to really take stock and figure out where we are and where we want to be as we move forward. Those of you who were here last year will know that the president and the provost took most of the year to really think about an institutional strategic plan. For us, the next stage is going to be to look at what was done at the university, university-wide, and then think what we can do with it as we move forward. So how we as the faculty want to respond to what the university is seeing as its priorities, and what do we want our priorities to be. So I do think this is going to be a very important moment for us as we move into something new and think about how we can help to shape the university and shape our society. So if I start by taking stock, I start with the Faculty of Arts academic plan. So when I came in as dean in 2010, we were in the midst of a unit review, which took place 2011. Part of the unit review was asking for a vision, a way forward, a strategic plan for the Faculty of Arts. We developed an academic plan, which was dated from 2011 to 2015, so 5 years. 16. So therefore now just ends. So a perfect moment, right, to take stock. That academic plan was a response to the institutional strategic plan, Dare to Discover, and then the academic plan, Dare to Deliver, and then point 2. Anyway, the planning, it's a great thing. So when I look at a relatively short academic plan, which is on the internet, so you can look at it too, here's what we promised to do and here's what we did. We said that we would engage people in a number of ways. We said that we would develop, we would celebrate success, and I feel like we've done a really good job of that we either imagined anew or strengthened our yearly celebration of research, which now really is a wonderful moment where we talk about research both among ourselves but also with a wider community in mind. We have a wonderful awards night, which really celebrates the best of our faculty and staff. We said we would develop communication strategies and expand our communication outreach, and we have done that. We developed a strategy. We have really worked hard to have strong internal and external communications. Can always do more, just like you can always celebrate success more, but we certainly did what we said we would do. We engaged with our community through an ever-expanding community service learning program and through a new arts work experience program, for example. We enhanced our commitment to diversity through the hiring of Indigenous scholars. There's way more to do in a whole bunch of registers for that, but we certainly took that seriously, especially in a period, if you think about 2011 to 16, in which we did not have a lot of new resources to try and deal with that. The second thing we said we would do is that we would educate engaged citizens, leaders, and scholars. These, again, match onto the 4 pillars of the Dare to Discover document. We said we would review the curriculum to prepare our graduates as citizens, leaders, and scholars, and boy, have we reviewed the curriculum. That seems to have gone on for virtually the entire time of the academic plan. So we still have that in process. I'm hoping very much that we will come to a conclusion within the next couple of months of at least this stage of examining our curriculum so we can move on and do other thoughts about how we make our BA even more exciting and important. We said that we would develop an international strategy, which we've done, and worked to improve the experience of our international students. Again, much more we could do on that, and I think the time is ripe to really think about our international strategy more. But we worked on getting excellent students, diversifying our international students, working on the bridging program to ensure that our students had a better experience. And there is, as I say, much left to do. In that time, we developed the Arts Work Experience program. It was piloted, and we have been gradually expanding it and have also partnered with business on the Entrepreneur Hub to allow our students to have entrepreneurial experiences, both of which were really to provide opportunities for our students to move their learning into the world and to gain experience so that they would not finish their BA or the bachelor's degrees that we offer and not have any idea of where they might go. This has been extremely successful. We want to ramp it up, but the proof of the concept has definitely been done. We've worked with the Faculty of Graduate Studies to improve the professional development of our graduate students. Again, more to do, but we have definitely started on that. And in this category, we said that we would develop an honors college, and this didn't happen. So I will say that that's one of the things in our academic plan that we worked on, we tried to develop, didn't work. And it partly didn't work because we were overtaken by events, which was the Peter Lougheed Leadership College and the university not really wanting to have 2 different things going on at once. That said, I think there's a very interesting way that we can rethink our honors programs, which I'll talk a little bit about later, and have an informal network of honors students that can really add value to all of our programs and recognize the fact that we at a research university can offer an excellent research degree. So make sure that our honors students do well by us. The third pillar was that we were going to conduct and encourage groundbreaking research and creative work. And probably the most important thing that we have done in that category is that we developed KIAS into a real incubation place. KIAS now helps to build teams and partnerships to take on the big interdisciplinary problems and to work towards significant external funding for some of these, so that it's a matchmaking service, it's a networking service, it's a way of scaling up. How many buzzwords can I use in one sentence? A way of really getting people together who might have common interests at heart with a little bit of funding, because that always helps when there's some funding to make that happen. So I think that that's been a huge success and something that we can build on. We've also encouraged our centers and institutes through creating ACE as an administrative support center, helping these centers and institutes to take on bigger research and community outreach programs. This was conceived of a couple of years ago and now really has become real. So we now need to take it to the next step of making sure that it's not just administrative, but helping our centers and institutes. We already hear that this is a model for the university. So that's very exciting that we're doing something that the rest of the university is looking at and thinking, how can we do that at our place? We've done some supporting of graduate students through travel grants and a few other small grants, and have begun to think about how best to position our students for varied careers. Though I will say that needs to be one of our big jobs for the next set of academic goals. Finally, the final pillar was organization and support. We were able to do some space renovation and reorganization, though much remains to do on that front. We said we would develop a comprehensive IT strategy, which we did. We restructured and rethought of our Arts Resource Center and developed much better connections with the central IST. Again, that's a work in progress, but I think we really did work on that very substantially. I think in that time we also went to the Google universe, so there's a lot of things that happened during the time of that academic plan. And we said that we would work to have responsive, effective, and efficient governance. And I think we've worked hard at that. We've come up with terms of reference. We've started to have good policies in place and moved to a consent agenda for the Arts Faculty Council, really trying to make it possible to have more meaty discussions at some of those moments. So there will be a report that comes out that tells you all of that, but that just lets you know we actually have been doing quite a bit in the last 5 years. It's hard to imagine. So now we need to look forward to the next 5 years. What are the issues that face us? What should we be doing about them? I think we need to start by thinking about what is the value of arts, both for our students, but also for the university. Why should the university have a faculty of arts? Why should the government pay for a faculty of arts? I think we need to ask those questions. We need to have answers to those questions. Because if we can't answer those questions, why would we expect anyone else to be able to answer them? So I have three things about that I want to make sure that I say as I move through. One is that arts has always been integral to the university. We have always been useful, and we have always been contested. So arts has always been a place of importance for the academy in ways that are actually useful, it's not some esoteric, out-of-the-way thing. We are always central to the university. So that's number one. The second, however, is that the rhetoric that we have all employed over the last really 10 years, that is, that we teach transferable skills, that we give people useful things that they can use in the workplace, that these are the soft skills that all employers are looking for. I think in the end that rhetoric has not actually helped us, that I think it has not been useful in the way that we hoped it would be, because it makes us sound like that's all we do, that we're just instrumental, right? That all we're doing is giving those skills, as opposed to the rich, complex, scholarly work that we think of as so important and that we do give to our students. So I think we've shortchanged ourselves by just going for those transferable skills. The third, which is related to this, is that the value of the arts is real, but we must engage in the world differently if we're going to have that value appreciated, and we potentially have to get our hands dirty to do it. So let me start with the first of these, that arts has always been integral. When Socrates was on trial for the sedition of youth, a trial that eventually led to his death. Do I have Rebecca in the room? If not, then oh, there we go. He's reported to have said that the unexamined life is not worth living. What did he mean by this? What's an examined life? Why would it be so important? Socrates was arguing that a life of merely getting by, of being amused by bread and circuses or binge watching Downton Abbey, was not a whole life. That a life where we truly try and understand and wonder and strive is the best life. It's harder, but it's nobler. Socrates was given a choice by the court. He could go into exile and never see his beloved Athens again, or he could take the hemlock and die. He chose the latter because exile was worse than death. And I think we all need to remember that. Exile is worse than death. And that's exile from the important work of the polis, which is what Socrates was talking about. I want to argue today that Socrates was right. Life is to be examined, and the greatest joy and contribution comes through living life fully in the mind and in the world. But that doesn't mean just the preservation of knowledge or antiquarianism. We don't choose exile, we choose to live fully as citizens with all the complexity that that is. So that's my challenge for you today. How do we live in the world and still honor and take seriously the academic work that we have generations of scholars behind us that has gotten us to where we are? So in other words, we never want to see the value of the arts as only instrumental. It's essential, and we never want to give that up. If we look at how the arts developed, so this gets to my second point of that the arts have always been part of the university, we see from Greek foundations that the universities starting in the 11th, 12th century started to codify the liberal arts. And so many of you will know this, that the liberal arts are the study by free men, later women, not the illiberal arts, that is the study of slaves, which is applied like they do in engineering. These are the liberal arts are the studies that are designed to free your mind and your body and train you to a lifetime of learning and participation in society as an imaginative and literate citizen. I always have to do the 7 liberal arts, the quadrivium, which is arithmetic, geometry, math, music, and astronomy, and the trivium, grammar, rhetoric, and logic. So you'll see that science was included as part of those liberal arts, which I actually think is super important too, but there we go. And these formed the basis of the medieval university curriculum. What sort of questions did they ask with these liberal arts? They asked, what causes plants to grow, the sun to rise and set, people to live and die? What sort of government is best? How ought human beings to live? These remain questions of the utmost importance today and stand as the basis of what it means to be a citizen and a full participant in the world around us. Well, if I fast forward, because even though I'm a historian of the universities, I'm not going to give you a blow by blow, or we really would be here till midnight. We fast forward to the 19th century. I know, give me a break. And the rise of the modern nation state. And with that nation state to the development of the modern university. These universities now very deliberately added research to their portfolio, especially in Germany, and they were founded all around the world, and through the 20th century, they have played an explicit role in the creation of educated citizenry. As the amazing rise of Donald Trump tells us, an ill-informed, uneducated citizenry is just a rule of the mob. Which is why modern governments have been willing to fund universities. That the reason that our taxpayers' money pays for universities and why they make it accessible to people of different socioeconomic and geographical regions, it's because they need educated citizens. And so we are educating citizens, not just to be taxpayers, which is what keeps being said, no, to be citizens. This is why Henry Marshall Torrey talked about the uplifting of the whole people. That's what that's about. I think we used that phrase for several years without really thinking what it was about. It was so we collectively could be better than we individually. Of course, this varied from place to place. We have the land-grant universities that were more about the applied arts. But remember that U of A was not a land-grant university. It was not founded as an agricultural school. It was founded on arts and science. It was founded as a liberal arts university. And the liberal arts remained as the core, providing people with ideas, imagination, rhetoric to lead and to follow. It's a very important part of its mandate. Now we come to a big change in the years after the Second World War to today, really the last 30 years. And that's what I would call the massification of the university. That there has been a huge expansion of the universities in the years after 1960. Continues today, that you look at Singapore, where they've just increased the number of people at the university just 100-fold. And this really changes everything, because the reason to expand the universities like that was not for the common good, for the public good. It was for individual good. It was by saying that people who go to university get better jobs, they become taxpayers, they earn more money. And so we end up in a situation where universities, there's lots of people who feel that universities are just about skill acquisition. The point of university is to learn a profession so you can make lots of money and look after your own family. And we, of course, well, maybe I shouldn't say of course, I suspect most of you, don't believe that's true. Of course people should earn a living, and of course they should be able to prosper in our society. But the purpose of a university, first and foremost, has to be for the public good. The humanities, social science, and fine arts all examine social goods for the good of the entire community rather than just individual or personal goods. So we're not just giving the soft skills that let you get that job. We're actually insisting that you be the critical citizens out in the world, both as citizens and actually as employees and employers as well. And so I think we do believe that society is better with well-educated citizens. If that's true, do the arts, as arts, have a role in society? I think the examined life is still important. It's still very much part of who we are and what we do. And the things that we learn and we teach our students are actually of fundamental importance to navigating that new complex world. What do we teach people? We teach people to make decisions with incomplete data. We teach people to say that the world is complex and it's not going to come to one simple answer. That fuzzy thinking is actually, as I know of, a philosophical term, something that actually is important to moving forward in the world. Anytime there's a simple answer, it's probably too simple. We also need to see the longue durée. We need to see how things have changed and why they have changed. Why is what's happening in Syria? It's not because of last week. It's because of hundreds of years that get us to here. So, and we need to use imaginary scenarios to think into other people and into other futures, which is where the creative arts really take us. I have to tell you, I was in New York in the spring, and I went to the most amazing play. It was called The Humans, and a story of this sort of raw despair of a family in New York that was just shattering. And that's what the creative arts do for you, is that they make you think you're another person, you're in another world, you're not someone else's head. And that's the only way that we move forward, is with that kind of empathy and creative thinking. I think there are important knotty problems, and my mother would say, you'd say naughty. No, naughty, not naughty. There we are, KN. Anyway, that both come from and require all of our disciplines to really think through and answer. So the first, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I think we can argue that one of the reasons that we are here today thinking about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission is, at least in part, because a generation at least of scholars in a whole bunch of different areas have been thinking about it and teaching it and pushing back against the dominant narrative until we get to a moment when that commission report can be heard, which it couldn't be heard 15 years ago. So that's a huge triumph for social science, humanities, creative work that has allowed us to get to that place. And we're only going to find our way out of it through understanding history, culture, language, as well as systemic issues of tacit discrimination, real discrimination, economic disparity, cultural genocide. Solutions are going to need to come in large part from arts-based disciplines. And we need to step up and take the lead in no uncertain terms. It's hard work, it's really hard work, but we need to be there. And even those of you who think, oh, my research has nothing to do with this, you need to be there too. And I will just have a little plug, which is that this is why we're sponsoring a 2-day event in October 20th and 21st called Truth and Reconciliation, Good Relations and Indigenizing the Academy, which is designed to be a conversation about what we can be doing, what the issues are. It's not a final, it's the beginning. It's definitely the beginning. You'll be getting invitations, and as many of you as can come would be fabulous, even if you can only come for part of it. So that's to tell you we are part of that. But also I want to go back to saying this is our issue. This is absolutely our issue. Another one, climate change. You might think that this is one for our engineering colleagues, but people need to think differently and act differently and care about different things if we're going to succeed in developing real climate change. The best technology in the world will do nothing without the work of humanists, social scientists, creative workers. And we need to not just sit there thinking, oh, if only they had asked us, but to actually be there and have those conversations. What about living together in an increasingly multicultural world? I started with talking about Brexit. Boy, this is the issue for our time. I mean, we look at refugees, we look at the conflicts, we look at the increasing turning in of especially Western governments against other people, and this is our issue for sure. You know, when the Syrian refugees arrived in Canada, they needed people who could speak Arabic, who could understand their culture. I was so touched by this that when the Fort Mac fire happened, there were a group of Syrian refugees who raised $2,000 so that they could put on a traditional Syrian dinner for the evacuees from Fort McMurray. It always makes me kind of tear up because I think it's at its best. That's what can happen. You know, that's the sort of multiculturalism that we want. We want that kind of exchange between people. So we need to think about that. The world is not becoming less international and multicultural. Pace those who want to build walls. It's only us who have the powerful knowledge and understanding to make all of this work. There's room for others. I'm happy to let engineers build buildings for them, but it's us who should decide where those buildings are and what they're. Before I'd build a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in and walling out. There's many more, but the other one that strikes me is what I call the gray tsunami, aging. Yes, it's about medicine, it's about technology, but it's also about psychology, politics, economics, the human condition, living in empathy and sympathy with others. This is going to hit us. It's already hitting us. If you're in Japan, it's already hit you. And we can do something about this and need to do something about this before I'm in some old folks' home and my children have forgotten who I am. That will never happen. In all of these and in many more, arts helps all of us and all of our students to be critical and supportive citizens. But we have to step up. We have to insist that we're at the planning table, that we're interacting with a world that needs us. And it's easy for me to stand here and say this. It's easy for me to go to Dean's Council and say, art should be part of this. But I got to have you guys behind me. I've got to have people willing to do some of these things, which are going to take you out of your comfort zone. And that doesn't mean every day and every person all the time. But these things are too important for us just to leave them to the technocrats, right? We need to be there. So that leads to the importance of the BA. The BA is not an easy degree for those without math skills that just need to do something else. The BA challenges our students and our alumni to make complex decisions in the world. Dealing with complexity is what we do best, based on incomplete and often contradictory data. Sounds like the job definition of a dean. Hence, we want to ensure that our BA is nimble, inspiring, provides students with the tools and skills and insights they need to be engaged and critical citizens. That's what the changes to the BA now proposed are to allow us to do. So come to the town hall, make sure that that's what they're doing, and let's see if we can move from there to really making our BA the most attractive degree that we can imagine. I do think that that's where the importance of experiential learning is going to be a significant part of that. You've probably heard me talk about experiential learning before because we've been working on it for some years. I see it as having 5 pillars, and all of which we already have started in various registers. So this is This is partly about packaging, it's partly about ramping up, it's partly about insisting to our students about the importance of these. So we've got community service learning, which now has almost 1,000 students that partake of classes in CSL every year. We've got the arts work experience, which at the moment I think is only 30 to 40 students a year, and we would really like to get that up to 200 or 300. We've got research opportunities, which we've mostly thought of as the summer Roger Smith internships, but I think we also want to include honors in this, because I do think that our honor students have an amazing research experience, and we want to both acknowledge that and encourage that. International experiences, we are the faculty that has most of those, but that means we have 4% of our students who go abroad, and so we want to think about, you know, how do we build on that. And finally, entrepreneurship, which is our relationship with business in eHub, which mostly is art and design, interestingly, but could be others as well, where students are allowed are encouraged to come up with entrepreneurial ideas and then pitch them in order to get some seed funding. All our students should have access to these as part of their programs, with a goal that the majority would have the opportunity for at least one such experience. So that would be my goal about the BA, is that it's available to all, and that that we really encourage students to have those experiences. I was talking to Stephen Mandel about this the other day, and he said, you know, it should be their responsibility to do so. And I think that's a really interesting way of thinking about that our students need the deep diving into our disciplines, into our research, but they also need to go into the world and see what's there and how those two can be bridged, because they're our bridge in all sorts of ways, and we need to give them the tools to bridge well. So once we have the BA sorted out, that helps us with recruitment, because we want the best and brightest students to choose arts and to choose U of A, well, to choose U of A and to choose arts. We need those students, and they need what we have to offer. We will be launching a strategic plan process for the next 5 years, which will start with coming up with our vision. Where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to go? What do we want to look like? How can we be necessary, to take that billboard of Nate's, necessary to Alberta, necessary to the world, necessary to our students, and to our alumni? We need to insist on that, right? That it's not just, oh, here's another little option you have, that we are necessary. We'll be talking about this over the next 7 months and developing a plan. We'll of course want to align with the new institutional strategic plan, because that's how you win in terms of resourcing what you need to do, but also because its name is for the public good, that we have an institutional strategic plan that really does talk about all the things that we care about. And so I think that we, with no trouble at all, can move forward with what we want to do and show that it's really what the university wants to do. So we can win on our own terms, but we need to be smart. We need to understand what the issues are of the university, so that what we can help with. When Dave Turpin came in, he said the first thing he did when he was talking to government is said, what can the University of Alberta do for you? And I think that we have to think in that way. What can the Faculty of Arts do for the university? What can we do for the government of Alberta? What can we do for the people of Canada? How can we bring our research and creative activity, our student experience, to the forefront of post-secondary education with U of A and in Canada more generally? So one of my favorite novels, my favorite David Lodge novels, is Nice Work. It's now an old novel, but a good one. And in that book, the premise is that there's a program in which faculty members from a red brick UK university do exchanges with managers in industry. Our heroine partners with an industrialist, thinking that this is going to be a big waste of time. And of course, both of them learn a great deal about each other, with much hilarity ensues. What a great idea, eh? What an interesting idea, to be out there in the world in some way or other. My cousin, who's a computer scientist at Waterloo, spent 2 years with industry, finding out how people used computer technology that he had been working on. He's not an engineer. His dissertation was on how to find the next prime number. So he's absolutely a scientist. You might say a pure scientist. But he understands more about the other world and they of him through having spent some time out there and talking to them in a serious way that is a partnership way. What if we took seriously the need to get humanities, social sciences, and creative work and understanding out into the world? Not just by giving our students transferable skills, but by getting out there ourselves, getting our hands dirty. What if we took our research and our teaching to the discussions of importance in the world today? What if we didn't choose exile? What if we chose staying in Athens and making it a better place? We all seek what Socrates sought, a satisfying and examined life. It's not just about soft skills or working in teams. It's about hard thinking, about wicked problems. It's about rolling up our sleeves and getting dirty. And it's about being at the table when the difficult discussions are happening. And it's so worth it. Thank you.